So obviously, Tyson Fury is going to be fighting Deontay Wilder for the third time, and then on top of that, before that fight was put into fruition because of the arbitration case, which I'm going to talk about in another video, AJ was going to fight Tyson Fury. So my this video, I think I'm just going to compare all three of them with each other, just because obviously Deontay Wilder's lost his title to Tyson Fury, but for a long time he was the WBC heavyweight champion, and he was considered a top 3 heavyweight in the world with the likes of AJ, with the likes of Tyson Fury. So I think it's a good time to actually compare all three of them based on what they've accomplished so far in their career. So in my opinion, I'm going to talk about their physical attributes first, and then I'm going to talk about their mental attributes. So in terms of physically, if you look at, by far the biggest puncher out of all three of them is Deontay Wilder. I mean, the guy's got a concussive right hand that he just has a knack for landing, and he's managed to knock out, I think, 95% of all the fighters that he's fought. That's not the exact percentage, don't quote me on it, but my point is that he's beaten a lot of fighters. He's knocked a lot of fighters out. Now, a lot of people say that his level of opposition that he was knocking out was not that impressive, and that's actually true. But the fact of the matter is, even if you're knocking out journeyman fighters, a journeyman knows how to survive because they make their money by fighting regularly. So if you're knocking out a journeyman, it's not in the journeyman's interest to get knocked out, because they make them they make their money through fighting regularly, so they're trying not to get injured. So if you can knock out a journeyman, it shows that you do have concussive power. On top of that, like, you can tell the guy's heavy-handed. He's not like if you look at like Mike Tyson was a prolific puncher with both hands, but if you look at Deontay Wilder's just prolific with one punch, which is his right hand. And to be fair to him, he is quite lethal and devastating with that right hand. The rest of his boxing fundamentals are not that good, but in terms of his right hand, he's almost got like a Thomas Hearns like right hand, which if he lands at you, and he has a real knack for landing that right hand, by the way. If he lands that right hand on you, you're probably going to go to sleep, and he's done it to so many opponents, it's ridiculous. The crux to that is that even though that right hand is great, and he does have other attributes as well, he's very quick, he's very athletic. This is a fighter that's very disciplined and dedicated. Like, you never see Deontay Wilder out of shape, which neatly ties in with Tyson Fury, by the way. He's a fighter that's although he's not technically the best fighter in the world, his stamina is incredible. He's got incredible heart and determination. This guy will never quit. And on top of that, he's a fighter that will always give it a go, and he's also got a lot of faith in his power. Like, that's a lot of people do say that Deontay Wilder is mentally unstable, and that is somewhat true. But there is one thing about him, like, as long as he's in the fight and he's not getting a shellacking like he did in his fight against Tyson Fury, he always believes, even if it's the last minute of the last round, he can turn the fight around with one punch. And he's got that puncher's confidence. A lot of punchers have that level of confidence that they don't get disturbed when the opponent that they're fighting is above them, in like several rounds above them. They have a certain confidence that comes with being a puncher, where they feel like it doesn't matter if you win the next 6 rounds. I know I can knock you out with one punch, so you can carry on winning the next 6 rounds. It's okay. So, and with that comes a lot of confidence as well. And he is a confident fighter, and some may say he's delusional as well, which could be a weakness. The problem with him is if you can deal with his right hand, which a lot of fighters are intimidated by the way. Like Tyson Fury showed in his second fight against him, all you got to do is, when you see the right hand coming, or you see a tail on the right hand, all you need to do is take a couple of steps back, and the right hand will miss, and that's it. He's basically sitting duck. The only thing he has is the right hand. Now, don't get it twisted, I'm not saying technically he's completely insufficient. He can still move around the ring, and he can still throw jabs and do other things, but his main money punch is the right hand. So if you take the right hand away from him, he's got literally, you got more than a 75% chance of beating him in a fight. The problem is, he's so prolific with the right hand, and he's got so much confidence in it, and he does have a knack for landing it, that most fighters don't see the final bell when it comes to fighting him. Now, in terms of comparing him's mental stability, I don't think he's as intelligent as a Tyson Fury or an Anthony Joshua, but in a weird way, that kind of works for him, in the sense that if he's in a fight where he's losing, he won't feel like he's in a position where he can lose because he's that delusional. He'll keep going for it, and that gives him determination and heart. If you look at the likes of Anthony Joshua, when he got knocked down 3-4 times by Andy Ruiz in their first fight, he did look like he wanted to quit. Like, he did get up each time and he did try to fight on, and I don't think he did quit, but he looked like he wanted to quit. Well, when you look at Deontay Wilder, when he was getting a shellacking from Tyson Fury, because he's so delusional and he thinks he can land one right hand and win the fight, he's less likely to quit. He's less likely to throw in the towel, even though his corner did for him. He fought against that. He didn't want the towel to be thrown in. Well, when you look at Anthony Joshua's body language when in the Andy Ruiz fight, the first one, when the ref threw in the towel, you can clearly see that even though he was sad that the ref actually threw in the towel, even though he was sad that the ref threw in the towel, you can clearly see in his eyes that he kind of acquiesced to defeat. Now, if he was to compare Deontay Wilder to a Tyson Fury is a way more technical fighter. Like, he probably doesn't have the power that Deontay Wilder has in terms of concussive one punch power, the way Deontay Wilder has with the right hand. But in terms of his technical boxing ability, I think it's sufficient to say that he's got more wrinkles in his game than a Deontay Wilder. Like, his boxing IQ is way better. On top of that, he knows how to get under a fighter's skin. On top of that, he's a fighter that's immensely confident. On top of that, in the first Deontay Wilder fight, he showed his ability to outbox fighters. But in the second Deontay Wilder fight, he put it on him, and he shows that he's got the ability to be a boxer puncher as well. So Tyson Fury, in terms of a skill set, he's probably the most skilled when it comes to this trio of heavyweights. Compared to Deontay Wilder, compared to Tyson Fury, compared to Anthony Joshua, he's the most skilled heavyweight, beyond a shadow of a doubt. The problem with and on top of that, he's got other things that he can do. He can showboat. He could put his hands behind his back. He knows how to measure range. He knows how to turn southpaw. He knows how to move. He knows how to pressure. He knows how to put it on you. For such a big guy, he knows how to be awkward and give you distance and show you looks. His immense confidence as well. Also, on top of that, even though he does get knocked down a couple of times, he always has shown the ability to recover from knockdowns. He got dropped heavily by Steve Cunningham. He got back up. He got dropped heavily by Deontay Wilder. He came back up. It's just in his nature. He's almost like a Marquez in a way. If you look at Marquez used to get dropped a lot, but he would always pick himself up and get back into the fight. Even though he got dropped, he would always get back up, and he would always somehow, most of the time, win the fight. Obviously, he didn't do it against Mayweather and other fighters, but there's plenty of times that he has done it. So he has that power of recovery that not a lot of heavyweights have. And then neatly you come. So in terms of being a skilled fighter, Tyson Fury is definitely the best pure boxer out of all three of them. In terms of being a pure boxer, he is the best. That doesn't mean that he can't punch and hit. If he sits down on his punches, I think he could hit a lot harder than a lot of heavyweights would expect. I mean, you saw what he done to Deontay Wilder in the second fight. He actually sat down on his punches and put it on him, and you saw what happened. He knocked him out and stopped him. So if Tyson Fury sits down on his punches, he can actually be quite devastating. But generally, his makeup is to be a boxer puncher. He likes to move and be slick and slippery, and that's basically what he's actually good at. That's his bread and butter. Now we come on to Anthony Joshua. Now, Anthony Joshua, from a stylistic point of view, he's a bigger puncher than Fury, but he's not as technic. He's basically the best all-rounder out of all three of them. He doesn't have. He's technically better than a Deontay Wilder, but he's not as big a puncher as him. But he's a bigger puncher than Fury, but he's not as technically gifted as a Tyson Fury. but he's just an all-rounder. He's got very good power, but he's also got boxing skills. You saw in the second Andy Ruiz fight his ability to box. That's something that he's not actually shown in a lot of fights. He's shown the ability to move and counter, and he's also lost a lot of weight, like a lot of excess muscle that was actually slowing him down. So in my opinion, in terms of stylistically, he's basically got the best of both worlds, in the sense that he's not as gifted as a boxer as Tyson Fury, but he can box, and he's not as gifted as a puncher as Deontay Wilder, but he can punch, and he's just a good all-rounder in every aspect of his game. He's a good all-rounder, I think in terms of like the way he carries himself as well is very positive as well. Now, just to get onto the mental aspect of each of these fighters, when you come to Deontay Wilder is probably the one fighter that you can mentally during the press conference of a particular fight, you can mentally get into his head. You can easily get into his head because he's quite an easily rattled type fighter. Also, he seems to be a fighter that could be manipulated to do things that he doesn't want to do when it comes to certain contracts with certain fights. I mean, when he got offered the fight between Anthony Joshua, I think he should have taken it, but somehow he got told to not take that fight, even though he was offered 100 million by Tyson Fury's team. He should have took that money, because that's a lot of money. 100 million for one fight. That would have been incredible. But yeah, anyway, he seems like the fighter that could be you can easily get into his head. Like, I think Tyson Fury showed in that fight that he got inside Deontay Wilder's head. Now, when it comes to Tyson Fury himself, one thing I forgot to mention about Deontay Wilder is incredibly delusional as well, which can work for him in certain instances. Because of his delusion, he never gives up when it comes to a fight. When he's taking that shellacking against Tyson Fury, he never quit, he kept going. But when it came to unfortunately, that could be his downfall as well, because a lot of times he thinks he's a lot better than he actually is. He probably thinks in his own mind that he's better technically as a fighter than he is, and he doesn't work on his game as much as he should. Now, when it comes to Tyson Fury's immensely confident. He's someone who believes that he can win at any point in his in a fight. Even when he's dropped heavily, he always gets back up and he always fights on, and that shows a lot of character from him. The way he got dropped by Deontay Wilder in the first fight, like most people would not have gotten up, and he did. Also, to come back from depression and what he suffered through when he put on them 10 stones, to lose all that weight and get in there with Deontay Wilder and almost beat him, shows a lot of character. And then in the second fight, to actually beat him and give him a shellacking and take his belt, shows a lot of character. The problem with Tyson Fury is that he can be mentally unstable. Now, he's not mentally unstable in the sense that he, like a Deontay Wilder, who can be manipulative and it lets his emotions get a hold of him. He's mentally unstable in his discipline. I think he's not the most disciplined in between fights. Like, you can see him put on weight. One thing you can say about Deontay Wilder is that he is a pure athlete. Like, this is the guy that lives the life. Like, in between training camps, he's probably training all the time. You've never seen Deontay Wilder fat. Well, you can't really say the same about Tyson Fury. In terms of his discipline and the way he carries himself in between fights, he probably doesn't live the best life. In terms of like his professionalism when it comes to in between fights, the way he carries himself, and that could be his downfall, depending on how you look at it. The person that I think is the most mentally stable out of all three of them is Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is just a consummate professional. This is a guy that constantly trains. He never lets himself blow himself out of weight. He's always on point, and I think he's the most level-headed in terms of discipline when it comes to all three of them. He may not have the charisma of a Tyson Fury or the immense self-belief that Deontay Wilder has, like that delusional self-belief that Deontay Wilder has, but I think he because he knows that he doesn't have that, and he doesn't have like the slick boxing skills of a Tyson Fury, because he knows he doesn't have that, he likes to keep himself grounded and mature and keep working hard and keep grinding, and he doesn't let himself blow out of weight. The one thing that I could say is a weakness for him is that sometimes he does hit the weights a bit too hard, and I think he's resolved that now, though. I don't think he does as much weight since that Andy Ruiz fight, the first one. I don't think he done as much weights, but yeah, that's my thoughts in terms of how they carry themselves, both physically and mentally. Stylistically, they are different. I think Deontay Wilder is definitely the puncher. Tyson Fury is definitely the boxer puncher, boxer predominantly, and obviously AJ is the all-rounder who can do a bit of everything. In terms of their mental stability, I think Tyson Fury's got the most immense self-confidence and is probably one of the most intelligent fighters. Deontay Wilder is the most delusional, but in a weird way that works for him, and he is incredibly determined. And Anthony Joshua is probably the most stable mentally when it comes to comparing them three. So yeah, that's my opinion on all three of them. I've done a mental and physical stylistic analysis on all three of them compared to each other. Tell me what you think. Who do you think in this generation is going to come out on top between these three? Who do you think is going to win between Tyson Fury and Wilder? Who do you think is going to win if AJ and Tyson Fury fight? Who do you think's going to come out on top? Obviously, like and subscribe to this channel, and yeah, just like and subscribe to this like this video and subscribe to this channel. I've got a lot more content coming your way. Peace out.